Hey everybody, how's it going? Well, that's good. Welcome to PHLY Flyers. I'm your host today, Charlie O'Connor. As you can guess, Bill Matt's not here today, but I do have the man, the myth, the legend, Steve Jaco, Flyperbole himself, on Twitter at least.
At least on Twitter.
At least on Twitter and Blue Sky for that matter.
I think that's, Bill often refers to me as that. So.
As Flyperbole?
Yeah, so
he is Flyperbole.
Yeah, I'm good with that. You know, it's the identity at this point, the identity of our friend, the right. We always need somebody in this seat wearing a Phillies hat and like a black shirt, right? And with facial hair. So we just have to keep that going.
And you're riffing on the Misfits.
I am.
So I respect that too. I don't know if I would see Bill wearing that shirt, but I definitely see him wearing a Misfit shirt. That's
Absolutely.
very on brand for one William Matz.
When I bought this, I had Bill in mind.
Okay.
Yeah, it was in the forefront of my mind right there. But yeah, I'm happy to be here. I've only ever done pre and post games for this. So I don't think I've been on the regular show before. So I'm excited to, be aboard and be podcast director today, Charlie.
And I feel like, Steve, this is the perfect fit because we have entered the summer. We're not quite in the dog days. This is the part of the summer where we're leading up to the draft, leading up to the offseason. So there's more to talk about than there will be in July and August. But we are obviously bringing back F Around Friday. And as one who is, definitely, I would say, adept at making light of the inherent zaniness of hockey and Flyers as a whole, you are exceptionally well suited to participate in an F Around Friday, I would say.
F Around, actually, that's what the F in Flyperbole stands for, is for F Around. And yes, I am very well versed in riffing on this team. It's the only reason I'm still podcasting about this team after a decade, is because I like to riff on it and have fun with it. Otherwise, I think I would have been out long ago.
Otherwise, we would all lose our minds because you have to appreciate just the comedy. Now, sometimes it's a black comedy, but you have to appreciate the comedy of the Philadelphia Flyers organization, especially over these last 10, 15 years. But before we get into the Flyers, and we will talk about them, I want to use this as a jumping off point to talk about the draft. And we're not going to go all the way back to the 70s and the 60s. Sorry. We're going to go back about 10 years, and we're going to just go through draft picks that the Flyers have made and talk about, number one, what comes to mind when we think of these guys. Now, a lot of them are well-known. Some of them are not. And maybe the ones that aren't well-known will be the most fun to riff about. But I also want to talk about essentially what we can learn from those picks, what positive lessons we can take from those picks, what negative lessons we can take from those picks, and what the Flyers should take from those picks going into what's going to be a really important draft for them in terms of having so many picks, in terms of furthering the rebuild. But before we get into that, I want to talk about the playoffs because last night, I would say we had one, maybe not quite instant classic game, but one of the best games of the playoffs, and then one game that was just kind of But we can start with the kind of game, the Carolina-Washington game. Washington basically had to win that game because they got their two home games to start. They lose game one. Had they gone to Carolina down 2-0, I think everyone would generally agree that the series is basically over. Obviously, Carolina for the series is a big favorite. Washington does get the win. I would say they got the win in maybe not the most aesthetically pleasing fashion, but they got the win.
They did get the win, and as you said, this was a needed win. This was a necessary win for the Washington Capitals. It's amazing. We've been talking all season about the Capitals being at the top of the standings, and are the Capitals for real? Can the Capitals actually do this? And this series, this is the test right here. They're playing Carolina, one of the most respected teams around the league. Not necessarily a team that, much like the Capitals, they usually finish near the top of the standings in the regular season, but then come playoff time, they don't get a ton of respect, right? But the Capitals had to win that game. But yeah, they got outshot 28-21 in that game. They were not exactly lighting the world on fire. Granted, Carolina plays a style that inhibits you from lighting the world on fire. It's a style that really is a terrible fit for the Washington Capitals in this series. But I'm glad they made a series of it. Most of these second-round series are outstanding. So this is probably the closest to a dud we have for the bunch right here.
I just think, too, because everyone knows the way Carolina's going to play. They're going to forecheck you to death. They're going to have the puck most of the game. And you're just going to have to be opportunistic when you have the opportunities to go down the ice and score. But I felt like, I know game one, Carolina wins in overtime. It's a close game. But I watched that game. And that was a game where I was like, Carolina's going to sweep this team if it keeps going this way because they were just all over them. The Capitals rarely had the puck. This game, though, and I think this was a less entertaining hockey game than game one. I thought game one was more fun to watch overall.
And you got to love an overtime game.
Yeah. Exactly. However, this game, I thought Washington played a style where I'm like, yeah, if they keep this up, they could win this series. And what I'm looking at is like, look, we know the Carolina Hurricanes are going to outshoot their opponents. It's what they do. They're going to win the shot attempts battle. But you go into the 5-on-5 numbers from last night's game. The Capitals actually led in 5-on-5 high danger chances. They had 9. The Canes had 8. Now, the Canes obviously led 70-40 in attempts. They were shooting from everywhere because that's what they do. But this is a style that the Capitals could win with, where it's like, yeah, we'll let you shoot from the outside, but we're going to get more high-quality chances. And I felt like that's what Washington did in a lot of this game. Now, compare that to game one, where the Hurricanes also went crazy in terms of shot attempt advantage. They lead 79-25 at 5-on-5. Crazy. Have the puck the whole game. But they also double them up in high danger chances. They finished with 18. Capitals finished with 9. That's not a formula for the Capitals to win. But if the Capitals can do this, we'll give you the outside, but we're going to get just as many quality chances as you. That's a formula that they could replicate. Now, again, it probably won't be the most aesthetically pleasing because it just means that Washington is going to be collapsing the slot and making sure you don't get in there. And then they're going to bank on, Ovi scoring a power play goal and winning a 3-2, 3-1 game. But this is how teams in the past, this is how Florida has done it, has beaten Carolina in the playoffs. It's how the Rangers have done it. They lean on their goaltending. They protect the slot. They don't let them get high-quality chances. I still think Carolina wins the series, but watching game 2, I felt more confident that Washington has a shot, that they can impose the way they have to play against Carolina to win, that they can impose that on Carolina.
One of the other teams I was thinking about when you were talking about changing that style of play to be kind of hideous but effective I was thinking about when our old friend John Tortorella had the Columbus Blue Jackets and took out the Tampa Bay Lightning, right? Like you have to slow that team down. You have to really just like kind of gum up the works.
Yep.
And that's the strategy that's going to work for them. I got to say, I've been pleasantly surprised, well, not pleasantly, I'm a Flyers guy, but Logan Thompson for Washington has worked out so well for that team. And just great numbers again last night, only letting up the 1 goal to another old pal, Shane Gostisbehere over there. But Thompson's been rock solid for them.
He has. And I think he was a surprise, to be sure, that he's been that good. But he has been. And it's funny, though, the trade that I look at that fascinates me the most, because you rarely see these, like, win-win trades where both sides won. Remember last offseason when we all kind of were like, well, that's a weird trade, when LA and Washington swapped Darcy Kemper for Pierre-Luc Dubois. That was a trade where you have two teams trading away. They're swapping bad contracts. That's like, well, this goalie stunk for us and he's on a bad contract. Well, this center stunk for us and he's on a bad contract. Let's trade him. Well, Darcy Kemper got nominated for the Vezina, and Pierre-Luc Dubois has been a darn good top 6 center for Washington. Like, how often do you see trades that are like that, where it's like two guys not working in either place and then you swap them and like neither side is mad they did the trade?
It's very rare that you see a trade like that where you're kind of it's change of scenery for both guys,
it is.
Right? And it actually worked out. Like usually it works out better for one side than the other. But in this case, it worked out for both. And I mean, you really can't complain if you're Washington or LA about the results. I mean, Pierre-Luc Dubois, I mean, he just had a fantastic season for them. He was really, really good. 66 points in 82 games. I mean, who saw that coming? Nobody saw that coming.
Yeah.
At the time, you're just sitting there going, well, who's this trade going to be worse for?
Exactly. And I was not terrified because I guess it would have helped the Flyers per se, but like Pierre-Luc Dubois is a guy where his big thing is no one trusts his compete level. Like nobody does. Everybody thinks that he's just like a dog who doesn't care, and he loafs it. He had the big blow up with Torts at the end of his tenure in Columbus. Like
I haven't heard of people having big blow ups with Torts.
Never.
That doesn't sound like him.
Truly never happens. But anyway, he's sort of changing the narrative about him in his career, because that was the perception of him, and now he goes to a team like Washington, which the perception of Dubois is like, well, you'll never win with Dubois. Well, Washington was not expected to win, and they are winning with Dubois playing a pretty big role.
Yeah, and I think Carolina comes out in this series, but Washington made it a series last night, so I'm into that, but I'm not into the style of play. It's definitely not what the latter game was last night. The latter game, I almost stayed up till, when did that end? Like
12:31ish, I feel like.
I considered it. I went to bed at the second intermission. I'm like, oh, I really don't want to.
Yeah, and I really do feel like the Carolina-Washington series is the outlier among the four, in that it's the one that probably is the least fun to watch.
Yeah, it's definitely the least fun to watch.
Like out of the other three, even the Leafs-Panthers, like, yeah, the Leafs are up 2-0, but I don't think anyone believes that series is over. We'll get to that in a few minutes, but the Washington-Carolina series is the one where it's like, yeah, if you can skip one of these series, it's probably the least fun hockey series to watch. But moving to a series that has been fun to watch, despite the fact that one team is up 2-0, that Vegas-Edmonton game last night. Game one, Edmonton looked like the better team by a lot. This one is a killer for Vegas because I thought Vegas was the better team through the majority of game two. Edmonton's going to have their surges. They have Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. But this was a game where I think if they get league average goaltending from Adin Hill, this game doesn't go to overtime. Instead, they have to make a furious comeback just to get it to overtime. This is the scary part for Vegas, where like you feel like you just, aside from goaltending, you just gave Edmonton your best punch, and yet you're going down. You went down 2-0, and you're going back to Edmonton down 2-0, knowing you just played maybe not the best game you could play, but a really good game, at least from the skaters, and you still lost.
Just a brutal loss for them. Like, I really did think they were going to pull it out when they were just making that effort late in the game. Like, and it was great fight from Vegas.
Yeah.
Great fight in that game. Not that that's a team not known for their fight, but great fight to come back in that game. They were down big, and like, yeah, that goaltending was absolutely brutal. And meanwhile, Edmonton is benefiting from getting, I guess, average goaltending from their backup right now. And what a situation going on there with ex-Flyer Cal Pickard. That's a should have kept, right?
Yes.
28 saves on 32 shots for Calvin Pickard. First one with a gritty mask. That's probably the most notable thing about his tenure in Philadelphia.
It's fair. I forgot about that.
5 games.
He was real bad in like all of them.
Yes.
That was, I think, the part of the game that was annoying me the most. And eventually Pickard started giving up some goals. There's that one goal he gives up where it was pretty clear that he was maybe not banged up, but he was trying to figure out if he was banged up. And then they score while he's still like in his head trying to be like, did I blow out my knee? What happened? Like, I'm not sure.
That's a fun feeling.
But Pickard, like, I've seen him be really bad for the Flyers, for other teams. He was in the AHL a couple years ago. And like, that's where it looked like he was going to spend the rest of his career. And now he's suddenly the goalie for maybe the favorite to win it all. Definitely one of the favorites to win it all, especially now that they're up 2-0 against another really good team. Part of me watching that game was just getting angry. Like it wouldn't bother me. And ultimately Edmonton wins because McDavid and Draisaitl hook up for the game-winning goal in overtime. So that was like, yeah, that's fair. I can accept that. They're really good. If they're the reason why you win, sure. If Cal Pickard is the reason why you win, that just seems like the hockey gods are taking an active impact on this game, because we know Cal Pickard is not a good NHL goalie. He's just not. For, I would say, 5/6 of that game last night, he looked like a good NHL goalie. And it's like, where is this coming from? We know he's not good.
This is a guy who, so I looked up his Flyers numbers. He played 11 games.
11 games
for the Flyers, which I would not have guessed.
Blot those out of your memory.
4-2-2 with an .863 save percentage and a .401 GAA.
Yeah, we're talking Alexei Kolosov-esque numbers here.
I was going to say, he'd fit right in on this year's team. Just would not miss a beat. Shockingly, though, he does have a .903 save percentage for his career. I would not have guessed that. But he's bounced around so much. He played Colorado, Detroit, Edmonton, Philadelphia, and Arizona, and Toronto.
He's a journeyman, to be sure.
Yeah.
And he's a journeyman for the reason why you should be a journeyman, because you're not very good. He has kind of settled into a, not a pivotal role. Well, in these playoffs, sure. But he's settled in as the Edmonton backup, and it's good enough. With the offense they have, it's good enough, I would say. But, man, I have to believe that if they stick with him, the rest of the way, maybe it's not going to happen in the series because now they're up 2-0 over Vegas and they're going back home. They might be able to close the series out quick, although I really hope they don't, because last night's game tells you, like, this could be a fun 6-7 game series if Vegas can find a way to stay in it. It's going to be tough going back to Edmonton to do it, but you have to believe that at some point down the road, whether it's in the third round in the conference final, whether it's in the cup final, that it's going to burn them if they keep relying on Cal Pickard to be their goalie.
You would think that would be the case. And the other thing is the Vegas of it all, right? Because Vegas has done it. They've been there. They know a way to win these series even when it's difficult and it's tough for them. And Edmonton knows a way to spectacularly flame out in these series. They've done it a few times at this point, which is astonishing considering that they have 2 MVP caliber players on their roster in McDavid and Draisaitl.
Yeah, I'm rooting for that to happen because I think in this series, I decided last night that I'm definitely rooting for Vegas. And now they're down 2-0. So now it's like, well, I'm going to be rooting for a comeback. But also, like, now I'm really rooting for Vegas because I want 5 more games of this series, which means Vegas basically has to win game 3 for that to even be possible. Because if they go down 3-0, like, yeah, I guess it's possible that Edmonton could do the reverse of Florida last year where they almost choke it away and then it goes to 7. But if they're up 3-0 and they're getting game 4 at home, good chance they wrap it up as a sweep, and even better chance they wrap it up in something like 5 or 6. I want this series to go far because it's a fun series. Vegas is a really good team. Edmonton is obviously Edmonton. And you did see Vegas play a way that presumably could allow them to win this series if they can find ways to punch back in Edmonton. It just feels like this was such a missed opportunity. They kill off the 5-minute major. Like, after they killed that off, you're like, Vegas is going to win this game. They have to, right? And then you forget that, well, all it takes is one bad shift with Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl on the ice, and then you're going to lose. They're
just so unbelievable. Just the way they effortlessly just flow through the game in a way that I watch it and I'm like, well, how are they wasting these guys? How are they wasting their careers at this point? It doesn't make sense to me. Charlie, I've been informed. Is it a big day for you today? Is it a big day for old Charlie O'Connor right here?
Yeah, it's my birthday.
Oh, happy birthday, Charlie. Hell yeah.
It is indeed my birthday.
Excellent. That's why Bill took off. He's like, I don't want to do this.
Exactly. He's like, Charlie, for his birthday to celebrate, Charlie's going to have to host the show and do all the ad reads.
What a guy that Bill Matz. Happy birthday, bud.
Oh, man. Yeah, it is indeed my birthday. But thank you. Thank you very much, Stephen. Thanks to all the commenters, to be sure. So before we go into the draft stuff, talk about the games that are tonight. We've got Leafs-Panthers. This is obviously a must-win game for the Panthers, but unlike Vegas, the Panthers will have home ice advantage for game 3. They don't have to try to overcome a 2-0 deficit while playing on the road. So Florida has to win this game, and like you have to think they will.
You talk about cursed team versus team that's been there. This is the definition of it.
Oh, yeah.
You know, Florida coming off the Stanley Cup victory. Yeah. Toronto, the most cursed team in hockey by far. And
I love it so much.
I feel bad for them only to a degree because it's hilarious. Like, do I want to root for Scott Lawton? Sure. Do I want to root for Anthony Stolarz? I think it's a great story, but the Leafs' misery is just too good of a story at the end of the day.
And it's almost certain. Have they officially announced that Wall is going to be the goalie again? That Stolarz is still out? Because I know they were playing it coy as you do in the playoffs, but they were more or less being like, yeah, Stolarz, he's still ain't skating, like not ready yet.
Not official, but there's an update from NHL.com yesterday that said Wall likely to start.
That was the last I had heard. Yeah. I didn't know if they officially announced that it's going to be Wall, but he was good in game 2. So if they get that guy again, he's not a bad goalie. Like he entered the season expected to be their starter, and they have him signed. Like they believe in him. It's just Stolarz has had a ridiculously good year. So they'd rather have him in goal than Joseph Wall. But I don't think it kills Toronto to not have Stolarz out there. I just have to believe that, you know, Florida is a great team. We all believe that they are one of the best teams in the league, one of the most talented teams on paper, and they have that, they're built for the playoffs type of thing. This is a game where, like, it's hard for me to imagine they lose. I could see them winning this one and then losing game 4, and then, you know, it goes back to Toronto, where Toronto is up 3-1. They could close it out at home, but I just can't imagine Florida goes down 3-0.
It would be shocking to see them go down 3-0. Do we have a bet ad read today? Because if you do, money line on Florida big time tonight, because I just can't see them losing this. I mean, between the experience and the steam, between the guys they have like Barkov, the compete level, and Barkov, the compete level, and Kachuk, they just have guys that show up for the big moment. And also, like, it's not like they played bad in those
Yeah,
games
it's true.
against Toronto.
Yeah,
Like, they've
been in
competitive
there.
those games.
Yeah.
Toronto is a massively talented team. Like, it's shocking that they haven't made an Eastern Conference final to this point. Just, they're stacked. You know, we're talking about the Oilers being stacked with 2 guys, but like Toronto, you're running it down with Matthews, you know, Nylander. You're talking about Marner. Like, they have unbelievable talent on that team. And I want this one to go 7 because this is just damn good, entertaining hockey right here.
I just want to see Leafs fan, and I'm rooting for the Leafs in the series. I'm on board mostly because of Scott Laughton, because I'd like to see him get rewarded for all the crap he's been through in Philadelphia. But I also want to see it go 6 or 7 because I want to see Leafs fans completely lose their minds. I do enjoy Leafs fans suffering. I enjoy watching that from afar because they're so bonkers. And when they think that it's all going to come apart, it's just so funny.
You're waiting with bated breath for that Steve Dangle meltdown.
Yeah. I love watching them like just go into fits of the combination of terror and rage at their team. It's the best.
Terror and rage is a great combination there and a great way to put it. I mean, it is the biggest hockey market. I think you've compared it before to like our passion for the Eagles.
Yeah, they're basically Eagles fans in Canada.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But the Eagles have given us 2 championships in the past decade where they haven't won. They've had a longer drought than the Flyers at this point. #1967. But it's 67, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, 67. And it's just funny at this point. It's the only team that makes me feel better about the Flyers not winning a cup since 75.
Yeah, we can't have more teams break their curses before the Flyers do.
Yeah.
We need teams to laugh at. And if the Leafs won a cup, there'd be one fewer team to laugh at. We also tonight have the Stars-Jets. This series, I mean, from the jump, this is the one I was the most excited about. Stars win game 1 largely on the back of Mikko Rantanen having his epic period for the 2nd straight game. Do you think the Jets find a way here to go to tie this series, even though Rantanen is in Rantanen mode?
Rantanen's been ridiculous. Like, he's Neo seeing the code in the Matrix right now, the way he's playing. It was just that 3rd period against Colorado was just unreal. Like, if you wrote that into a movie, somebody would call you a lazy writer because it was just so unreal. I like to think the Jets find a way, but after seeing the Jets struggle like they did against the St. Louis Blues, and, you know, those games were all dogfights, except they got whooped in a couple of them by the Blues, who were the last team in. You know, that was not a team they really should have been struggling against after being the best team in the NHL. And Dallas is so deep. They're so good. I'm not feeling good about this one for Winnipeg, but we'll see.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, Winnipeg's at home, so they're in the same position Vegas is in, where, like, they really got to empty the tank because you can't go to Dallas down 2-0. That's going to put you in a real tough spot. The one thing that makes me feel decent about Winnipeg's chances in this game is that I do think for the most part in game 1, Hellebuck looked like Hellebuck again.
That's a big factor.
If you have Hellebuck back to playing maybe not even 100% of his capabilities, but at 90, 95, and then Rantanen doesn't go into God mode, you can win this game. Like, the biggest reason why that series against St. Louis went 7 is because Hellebuck wasn't just not good. He was actively bad.
He was horrible.
He was really bad. If Hellebuck is good, this is a good Winnipeg team, a very good Winnipeg team, in fact. I don't know if I think they are better than Dallas, but they're very good, and they have the urgency that Dallas likely won't have, knowing that Dallas is up 1-0 and will be going back home for games 3 and game 4.
And this is a huge one for them, too, just looking at how they did against the Blues, right? They really got whooped by the Blues when they were on the road. And
yeah, that's a good point.
They have one of the best home ice advantages in the game because when Winnipeg shows up and does the whiteout, it's so cool. Yeah. It's a great atmosphere. One of the best atmospheres in hockey, I think.
No, it's a really good point about the home ice advantage that, you know, they did struggle in that St. Louis series on the road, and to go down 2-0 and then go on the road, then you're getting really worried. But going to get into the draft stuff soon. But before that, just have a couple words from our sponsors. And we are going to start with Ashley. Imagine your fan cave with a bold new centerpiece, the Mod Max sectional from Ashley. Now imagine getting it for free. Because we at PHLY, we've teamed up with Ashley to give one lucky winner the chance to bring home this flexible, ultra comfortable sectional. plus a $1,000 gift card to bring your dream fan cave to life. The Mod Max sectional is spacious and built for the most diehard sports fan. Whether you're hosting movie night, kicking back with the fam, or most importantly, game day. I know the Flyers aren't playing, but we got Phillies. Obviously, we've got the draft coming up. We got things that although honestly, I think you might want to be at maybe not want to be in your fan cave. You might want to be at our party on draft night.
I think so, yeah.
But maybe the next day, you'll be watching that on your Ashley Mod Max sectional. Entering is easy. Just head to allphly.com/Ashley to learn about the contest, see if you're eligible, fill out your info, and you're in the running. But don't wait. These sweepstakes won't last forever. Get your entry in now, and you could be watching the next big game on a brand new Mod Max sectional, courtesy of Ashley. Mod Max modular sectional by Ashley. Your choice of color, blue or gray, and configure up to 5 pieces. Must reside within our local delivery area to qualify for that giveaway. Again, visit allphly.com/Ashley for the full contest information and eligibility requirements. Terms and conditions apply. Now I want to talk to you a little bit about something happening at PHLY, specifically the NFL Schedule Show. PHLY will be hosting a special NFL schedule release extra show presented by our friends at Philly Sports Trips. Great people at Philly Sports Trips. We obviously went to Montreal with them. This is about a month and a half ago now. About a month and a half, maybe more like a month ago, but wasn't that long ago. Great people. They did a great job. But the schedule release show is going to be on Wednesday, May 14th. So next week, less than a week away, with coverage kicking off at 7:30 p.m. Eastern to discuss the 2025-2026 NFL season schedule. Tune in. See the PHLY team react to the matchups coming down the pipe for our reigning Super Bowl champion, Philadelphia Eagles. Again, NFL Schedule Extra Show will be held on Wednesday, May 14th, beginning at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Tune in and watch. Steve, it is now time to remember some dudes. We're going to be remembering some dudes. And I want to talk about this, number one, because it's F Around Friday, and nothing is more F Around Friday than talking about Samuel Dove McFalls. But I also think it's a good way to end the week, a good coda for the week, because we've spent on the show, mostly Bill and I, have spent the week talking about guys who they might take at 6. We know this is a really important draft. So I want to talk about the picks that they've made. We're going to start with the 2015 NHL Draft, 10 drafts ago. I want to talk about the individual picks, and I want to talk about why picks worked, why they didn't work, and what the Flyers of today, what Danny Briere can learn from the mostly mistakes, but some successes of specifically Ron Hextall in terms of drafting to do a better job than Ron Hextall ultimately did at building a contender.
Got to do a better job.
I mean, it wouldn't be that hard.
It wouldn't be that hard, but yeah, I'm excited to get into some of these because there are some names on this list right here. It also hurts my soul that 2015 is 10 years ago.
I know, right? It doesn't feel 10 years ago, but it was. So we're going to start out with the 2015 draft. This was at one time looking like it was going to be a franchise-defining draft. Ultimately turned out to be not a awful draft, but certainly not the defining one that it looked like it was going to be. First pick, it's a very strong draft. The Flyers take Ivan Provorov, 7th overall. I don't think you can say this is a bad pick because he ended up becoming a legitimately good NHL defenseman, clear top 4 guy. They get a haul for him ultimately when they trade him a few years ago. So it's not like this is a bust. But you do look at then guys like one Mikko Rantanen, who went a few picks later. Yeah. Zach Werenski, who, I don't think he's going to win the Norris this year, but he's nominated and he's in the mix. And you look at this as a what could have been pick.
You really do. And it for a while, it looked like that was the pick. It was a great pick at the time.
Yeah, I was excited about it.
I liked it. And for a while, it worked out. He was playing like 20 to 30 minutes a night, like sometimes like 25, 20,
Yeah.
From the get-go, he was playing a ton of minutes. Like, he really was out there, and he never quite became a number one, but like when you put him with a guy like Matt Niskanen, for instance, he was performing at least a level comparable to that. So there were times it really worked. But yeah, the really rough one is Werenski right after that, because Werenski, who's always been very good, but I feel like he's reached another level. I mean, this past season, he put up 82 points in 81 games as a defenseman. That's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And believe he played the most minutes of any defenseman in the league in terms of minutes per game, and then overall minutes, obviously, because he only missed one
26:45 a
game.
night.
Yeah, it's bonkers. I
It's
mean, and I watched those games when the Flyers would play Columbus, and it was abundantly clear that like when Werenski was on the ice, that was a playoff caliber team. And then when he was off the ice, they were just like, whatever. Like it was that glaring. But when you play nearly half the game, that's enough to keep you in the playoff mix, which they did stay in. So with Provorov, I don't know if there's anything you can really learn from this pick. They picked a guy with high-end upside. They picked a guy who produced very well in juniors with Brandon, who passed all the eye tests. And my, I guess, controversial opinion about Provorov is that I think that if you put him in a different situation from the jump, like if he was drafted by a team, let me put it this way. Let's say in a world where he's drafted by LA and he immediately slides in and it's like Drew Doughty's the alpha on that team. And Ivan Provorov, yeah, you're good and we're real excited about you and you can jump in year 2 and be a clear-cut top 4 defenseman. But you're not the 25, 24 minute a night guy who we just give the number 1 job to by default. I think he develops into a better player because I think then the ego doesn't build up. Because I think that was his biggest problem at the end, is that he was handed the number 1 job. Everybody told him for years how great he was and he's going to be a Norris guy. And then when it became clear that he needed to actually make some changes to his game to reach that level, he wasn't open to coaching.
No.
He was like, nah, I'm on the power play because that's what I do because I'm the number 1 and I deserve it. It's like, yeah, but you're not that good at it. No, I'm a number 1. I think he could have been, I think what he is now is a really solid second pair defenseman. I think his ceiling was legitimate number 2. And I don't think he got there in large part because the Flyers didn't have the infrastructure to foster him the way he needed to be fostered. And obviously this is all in retrospect, but maybe that's a lesson where, you know, maybe you want to take guys high that you think you can ease into a role rather than forcing them into a role they're not yet quite ready for.
Well, let's think about Jet Luchenko, right? When they drafted Jet Luchenko, he played a few games in the preseason and people got pretty hype about him. And then Torts desperately needed a center. And you could tell he really kind of wanted to keep Luchenko around, but they ultimately made the right decision to send him back. And you can see an alternate timeline where they decide, let's keep him around. And maybe that hurts his development if he plays this year at such a young age. You know, Provorov is playing those minutes as a 20-year-old. And you look at the Flyers defense. I have the roster up from that year right now.
Okay.
Shane Gostisbehere.
Okay, good.
Radko Gudas. Mark Streit. I think broken area downstairs.
Oh, yeah.
Michael Delzato.
MDZ.
MDZ, baby.
DJ MDZ.
Everybody's favorite Andrew McDonald.
He was still around.
Yeah. Brandon Manning, Nick Schultz, Robert Haig, Sam Moran. Or Haig and Moran only played 1 game each that year, but still not a very good group. You could see why Provorov really rose to the top of that group very quickly.
I would agree. And I think even though the Flyers right now, obviously their center depth is not good, I do think they have guys where, like, let's say they take a Hagens or a Desnoyers or a Frondel, and by year 2, they're up in the NHL. I don't think any of those guys is going to make the jump next season, but maybe by following year, 26, 27. I do think while Couturier isn't what he used to be, and Cates is obviously limited offensively, I think they're good enough that you don't have to like bring James Hagens up and immediately make him the number 1 center.
Yeah.
You can have him play behind Couturier for, 50, 60 games. And if he earns it, sure. But you don't have to do what you did with Provorov, which was by like game 30, Provorov was getting 24 minutes a night. And we were so excited about it. But like part of it was just, who else is going to take the minutes? Everyone else stinks.
Yeah, exactly. I think there is a good lesson to be learned there about maybe just developing your guys properly.
I think so. One pick I do think you can have a real lesson from, a positive lesson, maybe the best pick of anybody we're going to talk about. Travis Konechny. Travis Konechny, obviously one of the Flyers' best, if not their best player right now. They take him 24th. But the lesson I think you can learn here, they traded up to get him. And I think this is big for this year because the Flyers have a lot of trade-up ammo, and I think they should actively try to pull a Konechny. Where, like, if somebody slips, my dream is Roger McQueen, but if a guy who you think has high-end, top half of the lineup potential, if they start slipping, you have the ammo to trade up and get them.
Yes, you have the ammo and like do something with it. Like that's why you acquire all these picks so you can actually do something with it.
Yes.
You can be bold. And yeah, a guy like McQueen who has been projected from anywhere to the top 5 to not in the first round at all, would be a really fascinating guy to go up and get because he's got that size and there's potential to come.
The upside is huge. The risk is huge, but the upside is huge.
You got to take some risks because we're going to see it as we go through some of these drafts, some of these guys, but there are guys where they could have taken a risk and they didn't, and they paid because of it. And Konechny is one of those guys, they took a risk. It paid off. He's a great flyer. I think he's such a solid part of this team.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm really, excited to see what he does as this team evolves over the next few years.
I would agree. So now let's go some rapid fire. Felix Sandstrom, 3rd round, didn't pan out. He got some NHL time, wasn't the best. Now he's gone. I believe he's playing in someone's minor league system at the time. I don't think he went back to Sweden. When you hear the name Felix Sandstrom, what do you think? What's your lasting impression of Felix Sandstrom?
I just think of the techno song Sandstorm, and that's pretty much it.
I love it.
Yeah, but Sandstrom, I mean, the thing about goalies is goalies are so weird. You kind of just have to take a shot, and you just get a bunch of different types of goalies, see who kind of pans out. That seems to be what they have in the pipeline right now. Very meh.
Extremely meh. Here's a guy, Matej Tomek. Now
that's a name.
Now here's the thing with Tomek. He never even sniffed the NHL. He never got any time in the AHL with the Phantoms. He was just a straight up bust. But what do I remember the most about Tomek? I will tell you. In his very first development camp, he comes on the ice and he's got the number 69.
Nice.
And that was when he became, as we referred to him, long-standing in BSH, the sex number goalie. And then I remember at that development camp, we went up to him. A few of the other writers are like, "Did you just get assigned that number? Was that random?" And he's like, "Nah, I asked for it."
What a legend.
So wasn't a very good goalie, and now is playing in the Czech league. But he had a sense of humor, and I always respect that about Tomek.
That's pretty, you got to remember something about the guy. That's pretty good.
Speaking of guys we don't remember anything about, Samuel Dove McFalls. Now, I will say, fantastic hockey name, great hockey name. Now, it might not be a great hockey name in a good way because, you got Dove, which kind of brings up, the feelings of softness. And then you got McFalls. What is he, a diver? Is he a soft diver? Is that what he is?
Nice breakdown.
It is a good name. It's a unique name. He did nothing.
No.
I honestly forgot he existed until I wanted to do this thing. And this is one of the reasons I'm like, well, that'd be fun. Samuel Dove McFalls, what did he do? He was in a queue. Then he went to Austria. Then he spent some time with the Grand Rapids Griffins of the AHL. Then went back to Austria. Then played for Bakersfield in the AHL. Then spent some time in the ECHL. Now, 34 points in 38 games in the ECHL. Maybe that was his league. Then he went to the 2nd-tier German league and now is playing in the top-tier German league. So he is still playing.
Good job, bud.
28 years old, Samuel Dove McFalls, still playing professional hockey in the German league.
What? The only thing I remember about Dove McFalls is I titled a podcast "When Dove McFalls Cry" one time.
I love it. I love it. So closing this out, Mikhail Vorobiev had some time.
Oh, Vorobiev.
I would say a fine mid to late round pick. You take a swing on a guy. He had some moments, had some impressive play in World Juniors. And there were brief periods where you're like, this guy might be a guy. And then he wasn't.
There was a weird hype around him when he first came up that people were expecting him to be way more than he was. And I was like, yeah, he might be fine. People were like, oh, he might be pretty great.
I like the upside. My good friend Will, formerly Art of the Take on Twitter, loved Mikhail Vorobiev. I believe he actually had a Mikhail Vorobiev jersey.
Oh, wow.
Devastated when he turned out to be a bust. I actually, looking at these late round picks, though, the Dove McFalls pick, no, that was bad. But Vorobiev, David Kasha, Cooper Marody, and Ivan Fedotov, these are the kinds of late round picks I like. Because you got Kasha is a swing. You're taking a guy from the Czech league with some legitimate skill who at times in the AHL, he looked like maybe, he got 7 games in the NHL. He got a look. He's an upside swing. Cooper Marody got some time with Edmonton. Now he's more of an AHL star, but you're taking a swing on a guy with some scoring upside in the late rounds who was a USHL guy, so he wasn't in one of the major junior leagues. And then Ivan Fedotov, who eventually made his way to Philly. I feel like these are the types of late round picks I like. Like when you're taking guys who scored 30 points in the queue in the sixth round, like none of them are going to pan out. But if you're taking guys from lesser leagues, from underscouted leagues, from underscouted countries, maybe you'll luck into, a Sam Ersson, who we may get to talk to at some point.
Yeah, I mean, you got to take swings whenever you can get it. And if you can draft a gigantic goalie, you might as well go for it.
Give it a shot. 7th round pick. You know what? Why not? But before we continue, got to get into a word from 2 more of our sponsors. So we're going to start out with Empire. And just like your favorite team needs a home court, home field, home ice advantage, your home needs a home floor advantage, and Empire Today can help you get it. Empire Today, they got flooring experts, and we're talking about like Jim Neal level drafters. We're not talking about Ron Hextall level drafting experts. We're talking about dedicated flooring professionals here. They focus on flooring every single day. And we've all been to those big box stores, the endless aisles. Then you're hauling the materials home. You don't know what to do. You're doing it all yourself. Well, guess what? That doesn't happen at Empire Today. Empire Today lives, eats, sleeps, and breathes flooring. They will be with you every step of the way. It's an entirely different ballgame. Their flooring experts bring the showroom right to your home. You pick the right flooring, the right colors for your space, see how it looks with your furniture, get precise measurements taken. With Empire Today, you get clear, upfront, and all-inclusive pricing. Plus, get scheduled installation as soon as the next day. So schedule a free home estimate today, because some things are just better at home. PHLY listeners can receive a $350 discount when using promo code PHLY. $350 discount with code PHLY. Restrictions apply. Visit EmpireToday/PHLY for full details. And I have to do it. 800-588-2300 Empire
Today.
Thank you, Steve. And to close it out, we're going to talk about one of our long-standing partners here at PHLY, TrueMark Financial. So if you're working from home, it's time to stop calling plays from the couch. With a TrueMark Financial HELOC Select, you can tap into your home's equity and finally upgrade that home office, build out a better space, finish the projects you've been putting off. I'm actually working on building out my home office. I've had a home office since I got my house a couple years ago, but it's still a work in progress. So working on getting some bookshelves and hanging things up. But with the HELOC Select, you get a great low rate, flexible access. You pull funds all at once or only when you need them. Lower rates than most personal loans and no penalties if you pay it off early. So visit TrueMark.com/PHLY to apply and turn your work from home game into a winning play. Terms and conditions apply. Visit TrueMark.com/HELOC for details. Federally insured by NCUA, an equal opportunity lender, NMLS 404938. Steve, now we are going to get to the 2016 draft.
Oh, what a draft.
A draft that will live in infamy. Truly. Or even the good picks ultimately prove to be bad.
Yes.
So we will start with one German Ruvsov, notably the Germ.
The Germ.
The Germ.
The Germ. Getting infected.
So what's the lesson from this one? Don't draft guys who were linked in doping scandals before draft? Is that the lesson? That's the lesson we take away. Because he was, if you remember, he was linked to a doping scandal for like the entire Russian junior team, the junior national team, leading up to the draft. The what we told ourselves was that, oh, well, like it was not his fault. It was the people at the top. They gave them supplements they didn't know they were taking, which very probably is the case. But also, I don't know, maybe it made him look better than he was.
Just a little bit.
Maybe.
Just a little bit, yeah. But I always wanted him to pan out just because I loved calling him the Germ. I was never on board with Ruby. Never once. Don't quote me that I was ever on board with Ruby, because I wasn't.
It's a lie.
But the Germ is
Fake
a fun
news.
nickname. I wanted it. Fake news. I don't support it. But the Germ was a lot of fun. I wanted it to work out for that reason. He sucked.
He was not good. There were a couple moments where it looked like he might be turning into something.
Yeah.
Then he got hurt. Then he came back and was nowhere near as good as he used to be. Ends up getting moved. He was the throwing in the Giroux deal, right? Didn't they dump him in the Giroux deal just to get the contract gone? So that's a flop. What I will say is that the rest of that first round, you don't have many guys that panned out. Like Sam Steele has had moments.
Great.
Brett Howden is a decent role player for Vegas right now, but like nothing special. It's the second pick, Pascal Laberge. In fairness, I don't know what Laberge would have been if he didn't have that awful concussion right after. It was in his draft +1. He has this awful concussion, gets a cheap shot. Never really was the same after. But the killer is the guy who gets taken 3 picks later in Alex DeBrincat.
Ugh.
And this is a guy who racked up tons of points at juniors. I feel like in 2025, he would not have lasted to 39. And it's painful that they could have gotten him at 36 and instead take Pascal Bergeron.
I mean, talk about a guy who would have made a huge difference in the franchise right
Yeah.
there. I mean, DeBrincat playing with Giroux would have been just ridiculous. Come on.
It would have been fun. Now, DeBrincat isn't a perfect player. He's obviously very small. That's why he slipped. But come on, we're talking about a high-end offensive player. He plays with some bite. He's always had that edge to his game, despite the fact that he's small. I think fans would have loved him. It's just a bummer that you have that opportunity twice. I get passing him up in the first round because obviously he slipped another, 15 picks. So if you're trying to draft the most optimal, the most efficient, you probably let him slip and then take him later. But then you pass on one a second time and you completely flop there. Then you've got Carter Hart and Wade Allison. Now, I don't want to get into everything going on with Carter Hart. We could do a whole show on that. The court case is going on. There's a lot of awful stuff coming out in that case. But I will say that obviously they make this pick not knowing what's going to happen with him and not knowing what he will ultimately be linked to, be involved with.
But from a pure
hockey standpoint, it's a good pick.
Standpoint.
He ends up giving them multiple good years as the #1 goalie. Doesn't ultimately become the star we hoped he was going to become, but solid pick in the second round.
Agreed.
Wade Allison, not a bad pick. Ultimately doesn't work out, but I don't think it's a terrible pick.
It was a swing at what it could have been a very fun flyer. There were times where we thought he was going to be kind of Hartnell Jr., and that was exciting. That seemed like just a good guy to have in your middle of the lineup, middle six kind of guy.
Fun player.
Very fun player.
Fun player.
He was a lot of fun. He was kind of like a Tasmanian devil out there, but ultimately fragile as hell.
Yeah.
Just Mr. Glass.
I have to wonder if that was a thing that, if he doesn't have the knee injury and he doesn't keep getting banged up, that maybe he lost some of what made him special because of those injuries. There's only so many injuries you can have, especially when you're already kind of like a borderline NHLer where you still keep the physical ability to be an NHLer. And look, injuries happen. So LeBurge, Allison, both probably got impacted with injuries. I want to talk about Carson Turinsky and Connor Bunnaman, though, because these are the kinds of picks that I hate. And it's nothing against these guys specifically. It's that if you're taking guys from major junior leagues, because Turinsky was WHL, Bunnaman was OHL, you want to take guys like Denver Barkey, guys who slip because they're small, but they have high-end skill. I don't like taking guys like Turinsky and Bunnaman where, even if they hit, they were going to be big bottom sixers. These are the kinds of picks that I dislike from a process standpoint because I don't see the upside.
Right. Just, I'm trying to remember who that guy, that goon that Paul Holmgren drafted in the third round was.
Well, there was Tyrell Goldborn.
That's what I was thinking.
Is that who you're thinking of? Yeah.
Just guys like that. That's a similar ilk where you're getting somebody with a very low ceiling. And I'm just not into that. You want to talk punny things that I remember somebody for? The only thing I remember Connor Bunnaman for was I made an Echo and the Bunnaman joke on the podcast one time.
It's a good joke. I like it.
Yeah.
And I like Connor Bunnaman. I like Connor Bunnaman a lot more than I like Carson Turinsky.
Yes.
But Carson Turinsky, his claim to fame is that he was taken in the expansion draft.
Yes.
He was the expansion draft pick by Seattle.
I thought he was, and I was trying to verify that. And I'm like, my memory's right on this, right? There was a time when they were both in the lineup, right? They were both fourth liners.
That sounds about right.
Yeah.
I'm sure there were a couple games. That makes sense.
Those we've had some brutal times.
But I think for me, comparing this to the 2023 draft, the first draft that Danny Briere managed, in the middle rounds, he goes Denver Barkey, Cole Knuble, which is a pick I didn't love, but you know what? I get it. I get you go with a former Flyer who you have a connection with. And
you got to make the alums happy. John.
And also, he was from a little bit of an under-scouted league in the USHL. Now, the USHL has definitely gotten scouted more in the past 4 or 5 years than it was 10 years ago. But it's not the Q. It's not the OHL. It's not the dub. But you take Denver Barkey, who is a high skill, high energy guy who only slipped because he's small. If he was 6 foot, he would have been at least a second round pick, if not a first round pick. Those are the kinds of swings I like in the middle rounds. Alex Chiernik, same deal. He's a European, so not everybody's going to scout those guys, but also elite skating tool. You've got an elite tool. There were no elite tools for Connor Bunnaman and Carson Turinsky. They were just big.
Right. They were just big.
And
that's I'm seeing so many lazy takes right now about the Flyers pick at 6 right now that are relying on guys being in the Flyers mold and everything. And I feel like it's so outdated where you're thinking of them just getting guys who are big for the sake of getting big. Like, I haven't seen the current crew really do that too much. So I know the Flyers used to do that, and it's definitely a stereotype for a reason with this team, but I'm hoping they're over that trend, because when you get guys that are just big, well, it's not going to work out.
Yeah, and like big guys are fine. You just need them to be good at things.
Yes.
And I mean, we'll see where we ultimately fall on Brady Martin, but it does seem
we're going
like
to talk about a big guy who couldn't do anything pretty shortly.
Yeah, fair point. It does seem like Brady Martin is a mid-first round talent who is jumping up because he hits a lot. It seems like that is what the story is with Brady Martin. We'll get more into him over the next month and a half. But going into the final four picks of this, the final few picks of this draft, we got Linus Hoberg, we got Tanner Lazinski, and Anthony Salonitri, David Bernhardt. I believe David Bernhardt is probably the guy you're thinking of when you're just like big guy who can do nothing.
Oh no,
else.
there's another guy I'm thinking.
Oh,
of.
another guy.
Yeah.
Okay. Linus Hoberg had his moments. I don't hate that pick. Lazinski, I liked him, but ultimately probably more of a tweener than anything else. But fine pick for the 6th round. Salonitri was a good skater, but again, when guys from the OHL and the Dub especially, when they slip to the 6th round, everyone in hockey has watched them at least 20 times. If they slip that far, there's probably a reason.
Mm-hmm.
Those guys, not my preferred types of picks in the late rounds. I'd rather go like draft me like an Ivan Paltov in the 6th, 7th round, where like we're the only guys who scout Russia that much. So maybe we just saw something that nobody else did. If you're drafting a guy who's a draft eligible OHLer in round 6, like, I don't know, the chances that you see something that no one else did, probably pretty slim.
That's why I'm glad we're the Russia hub now.
Yeah.
We've got the connections.
Or
now
draft
to make it work.
or scout like the Swedish juniors more than anybody else does.
Yeah.
Like, you got to find those undervalued guys. And I don't think tapping into the OHL realm in rounds 6 and 7 is where you're going to find those undervalued guys.
Yeah, this guy hasn't worked out. Nobody wants him, but I think he's going to work out for us.
Exactly. Love the Arrested Development meme there. Okay, so we're now going to go into what I think will be the final draft of the day of remembering some guys, the 2017 entry draft. And man, this one hurts. With the exception of one pick. One pick we can learn something good from. All the other picks, maybe with the exception of Morgan, he had his moments.
Yeah.
All the other picks are like, what can we learn not to do?
You want to talk about something that's been talked to death? It's what we're about to talk about.
Yes, it is. Nolan Patrick, I think the obvious lesson to be learned here is if all the scouts tell you pick another guy, maybe pick that other guy.
Yeah. It's also just because he's the consensus number 2 pick doesn't mean you actually should pick him.
Like, that is true. That said, like, if he's the consensus and all your scouts say he's great, then yeah, take him.
Sure.
But if he's the consensus and like the majority of your scouts, as I believe was the case, tell you, yeah, that Miro Heiskanen guy, he's going to be better. And then you're like, now we need a center. So you're prioritizing need over evaluation, and you're prioritizing, well, I'm a Brandon Wheat because Ron Hextall was a Brandon Wheat. He had connections in that organization. He's like, I'm taking the Brandon kid. This, I think, is something the Flyers can learn from for this draft because, number one, the Flyers will have Danny Briere and Keith Jones have established that they like to take guys they know, where they have a connection. They like to take London Knights because Jonesy is best friends with the Hunters. And, they took Jack Berglund last year because Brent Flair loves that program in Sweden. They took Spencer Gill in no small part because Sam Moran has the big connection with Rimouski. This is an opportunity where, like, the Flyers, if your scouts tell you this guy is better, but you have a connection with this other guy, probably should take the guy your scouts tell you is better and not be focused on like, yeah, but I know him. Take the more talented guy, and then positionally, same thing. Like, if you get so hung up on the idea that they need a center, are you going to pass on a Porter Martone who's going to be a stud?
That's exactly what I was thinking of when you were talking about this, because we were just talking about this yesterday with Martone. If Martone's available, the Flyers probably should pick Martone, because even though they need certain positions, they need centers more than anything. Like, you can figure that out. Take the talented guy. Take the best player.
And they do need centers. They need centers badly. But like, if If it's a choice between Porter Martone and Brady Martin, I don't know. I'd probably go Martone.
Yeah, I'm going Martone for sure. Yeah. And again, I know Martin just kind of appeared in some of these mock drafts and everything, and he does have certain good intangibles about him, but ultimately it just feels like they're tying a guy who has those old school Flyers, traits about him to, I don't know, just they're saying the Flyers will pick this guy. It always happens. It's always the biggest guy. They're like, the Flyers are going to draft the big guy.
Oh, they're going to draft the big guy.
No matter what.
Absolutely.
But there's a lot of good lessons to be learned from Nolan Patrick here. Trust your scouts. If your scouts are saying one thing, you should definitely go with them. And don't draft just because, I don't know, he was on a team you like that you used to be on. That's stupid.
Now we get into Morgan Frost. We've obviously talked Morgan Frost to death on this show since we launched. I don't think it's a bad pick because you ultimately got a middle six skilled center who he never developed the way you wanted him to. But like you look at the guys that were taken after. Okay, like Shane Bowers, Joko Harju, Ilya Tolvanen, who was the guy who I wanted, and like maybe he's the better pick, but I don't think it's like a blowout. One guy's a scoring winger who's bounced around. One guy's a skilled middle six center. Probably, generally speaking, you go tie to the center because it's a more valuable position. Like Klim Kostin, Connor Timmins, Cole Lynn, Nicholas Hague. Like Hague is pretty good. He's a solid enough defenseman. I don't know if this is a terrible pick. It's the pick after that you're like,
that's the big man I was talking about there.
Because you got two big men on the board at 35. You have Isaac Ratcliffe and you have Jason Robertson. And you took Isaac Ratcliffe. And this is when you go to the whole Dallas, like, you could have came out of this draft with Heiskanen and Robertson, and instead you came out of it with Nolan Patrick and Isaac Ratcliffe. And before we continue, we're now headed to overtime. It's overtime time here. So if you want to continue watching and you're watching on television, flip over to our YouTube channel. But back to Isaac Ratcliffe, because I know you want to talk about the big man who couldn't do much else. He did score in juniors. He did do that. And then when he went pro, it went bad.
It went bad, and I like the potential. I did like, the idea of having a very large body out there, causing some havoc and scoring some goals, but did not work out in pros at all.
Yeah, and it just hurts even more because you're staring at Jason Robertson. He goes 4 picks later to Dallas. This is the difference between an organization that drafts well and an organization that doesn't. Dallas never fully bottomed out. They had that one early pick this draft with Heiskanen, but that was really it. Then they've been open about it. They've done interviews where it's like, look, if we bottom out, we might not have a franchise in 5-6 years. The Flyers obviously are different. They're still going to, be owned by Comcast, and they're still in a big market. Dallas looks at it as we can't afford to be bad for 5 years and tank. So they need it to draft and develop and do the retool. And they succeeded because they drafted incredibly well. And this was just the start of them drafting incredibly well, but it's still painful to look at what could have been with that early second round pick.
It's brutal to think about. I've never thought about it from that perspective with Dallas. Like if they have a dry spell, like that could be it. Yeah. And it makes a lot of sense because if you look over at Arizona, Arizona absolutely pitiful, and also all their stadium issues. Nobody showed up, and well, they're in Utah now.
That definitely got them going down the spiral. But going into these next 2 picks, I don't hate the Kirill Ustimenko pick in process because it's the same process that got you Igor Zavragin. It's just they didn't pick the right goalie.
Yeah,
process wise, take an under-scouted guy in the 3rd round. Perfect time to take a goalie is the mid rounds. I don't love taking goalies in round 1, but 3rd round, I'm on board. And take a guy who your scouts, because maybe you've watched him more than other teams have, think he's legit. You just picked a goalie who didn't pan out.
Yeah, I mean, it was worth a shot.
Worth a shot.
Again, goalies are so weird. Goalies are so voodoo that you need to take some shots at all different types of goalies and see who works out.
Then we get to Matthew Strome, who don't hate the pick because the skill was there. It was a bet on we can fix the skating. It just turned out you couldn't fix the skating. Yeah. But at least I can respect the process behind it.
You totally respect the process. Good hockey senses. I'm sad he didn't work out, and I'm sad that we got the Jeremy Giambi of the Strome family.
It's true. Yeah, because honestly, the other ones all ultimately did. There were stretches where it looked like they might bust, and then Dylan Strome found his way. They found their ways in the NHL.
I can't believe what Dylan's done in Washington.
Yeah, he's been great.
He's really reached a new level, and it's It was very surprising to me when I saw that the first time because I wasn't following the Caps that much the previous season, and looked down. I was like, Dylan Strome's the top scorer, and then he's been great down there.
Yeah. I again, another one where it's like Ustimenko, where don't hate the process, just pick ends up not panning out. Strome, you bet you could fix the skating, you couldn't. The one thing that always worried me about his skating though is like, I feel like the guys who improve their skating dramatically after being drafted are the guys that either started playing hockey late or didn't come up from a wealthy background because they didn't have the money to pay for skating coaches and to to work on skating and paying for ice time and stuff like that. Those are the guys I think can make the bigger gains. Like Strome came from a hockey family. Yeah. All three of them were studs. Like if presumably he worked with all the same skating coaches his brother did, and if they couldn't get him to be a good skater, like you probably weren't going to either.
Exactly. It's like that the Stamkos commercial where the guy's got the baby by the glass, and he's like,
with Hedman.
Oh, he's not skating yet? Guess you don't want an NHL player.
Yeah.
Like, that's how it is. So what camp does Tyson Forrester fall into? Because he improved his skating. And
he did.
That was the big thing when they drafted him, is like his shot's unbelievable, but his skating sucks.
I think for Forrester, it was more, and he's still not a great skater. Yeah. I think for him, it was more about strength. Once his lower body got stronger. With Strome, he just like looked like a wounded duck out there. Like his skating was completely like, it had no coordination. He was like flailing around. He was wobbly. Like Forrester, if you watch his skating stride in juniors, it was fine. It just had no power. And I think he's just built up his lower body. So now he actually has some power in those strides. I think that was more the Forrester situation. Strome needed to be taught how to skate. And I'm guessing he went through multiple skating coaches who just ultimately threw up their hands and like, I don't know, I can't do it. Whatever.
I didn't mean to hit my mic.
I respect it. I like the energy and enthusiasm. Yeah. I do. We'll get through this. Maxim Sushko. Another one of those picks where I'm like, look, he's in the OHL and he slipped around 4 and, didn't have great scoring numbers in the OHL. Like, did you really see something in him? Strome at least had point per game. Sushko, don't love it as much. But now we get to a pick that I think we all can agree. Maybe the best, either him or Lindblom, maybe the best Ron Hextall draft pick.
Yeah, I mean,
maybe.
You want to talk about value.
Noah Cates is what I'm talking about. 5th round pick, because I'm not gonna ding Ron Hextall for not being able to predict that Oscar Lindblom would get cancer. He was poised to be a really good middle 6 winger and a really likable guy. And then thankfully he beat cancer, but just never was the same afterwards. I'm not going to ding Hextall for that. That was not a failure of evaluation. That was a failure of just the fates.
It's terrible luck. Yeah.
Noah Cates, knock on wood, is not dealt with a major health problem, and he has developed into a darn good middle 6 winger center.
Yeah. I mean, that's a success story. When you get that from the 5th round, that's unbelievable. That just doesn't happen very often. It's a great pick.
I remember when Hextall got fired and the Flair-Fletcher tandem came in, and it was the first development camp, and I asked Flair, we got him second day development camp, and I asked him, now that you're taking over this prospect pool, because this was the time where we thought the prospect pool was great, where it was this is one of the best pools in the league. It's top 5. Everybody's going to be great. Hextall rebuild. It's going to work. And I asked Flair, who's the guy who in this prospect pool that you wish you had drafted in Minnesota and you're happy coming here that now he's yours? And Flair was like, Noah Cates. He said that he was in our backyard. He was a Minnesota guy. We had him on our board and we were livid when the Flyers swooped in and snatched him right out from under us. And we are so happy to have him. Brent Flair was right. He was right that was a pick that, maybe the best pick of the Ron Hextall era in terms of finding a guy who was undervalued. And this, again, goes back to what I like about late round picks. It took a guy who was high school guy. And look, a lot of high school guys bust. There's a reason why they slip as far as they do. But they're underscouted. And if you have a hunch that this guy's going to be go for the underscouted guys in the late rounds rather than the guys that everybody's seen. Noah Cates was a high school guy who was going to spend a couple years in the USHL, who was going to take some time, but you scouted him hard because if you're the Flyers, you have a lot of scouts. You have the infrastructure to scout where most teams aren't willing to go because they just don't have the money to. This is where you can take advantage, and these are the kinds of late round picks that I like. A lot of them are going to bust. A lot of them aren't going to pan out. But once in a while, you nail on a no Cates.
Yeah, I mean, what else can you say? Great hockey sense on him.
Yeah.
And the fact is, he can, you don't want him as your first line center, but he can play that role on given nights and absolutely shut down the other team. I mean, that's as good of a success story as you can get in the 5th round.
Exactly. And then final 2 picks, we got ALLCITY, who is technically still in the organization. I believe he is going to sign elsewhere. His contract is up. But good AHL player, got 45 NHL games, scored 11 points for a 6th round pick. That's good.
Yeah.
Good pick.
Yeah, I like Ula.
And then Wyatt Kalynuk, he got NHL time. He ultimately didn't sign with the Flyers, but as a 7th round pick, hey, they got a guy who played in the NHL and was at least intriguing enough to be an exciting college free agent after he chose not to sign with the Flyers. Just maybe make sure that they'll sign with your team.
Yeah, yeah. Bottom of that draft, pretty good right there.
Wasn't bad.
One final question I have for you, because I know we are out of time to go over the rest of the list, but does Jay O'Brien make you scared of drafting a Jay O'Brien?
Jake
Yeah,
O'Brien.
I know.
But
he is a J.
He does not.
O'Brien.
He does not. He is a J. O'Brien. He does not. I actually like Jake O'Brien a lot. Not one of my preferred options for 6, I would say, but the option not in my preferred options that I would be the most like, yeah, I'm on board with this. I like him a lot. Jake O'Brien, I'm a fan, like his skill set, have some concerns about elements of his game, but the upside is there for him to be a playmaking scoring center, and that is very intriguing to me. But before we go, we got to do super chats. So we got a few here from DPhil9. Happy birthday, Charlie. Happy FAF. F Around Friday. There we go. Charlie, thoughts on Citizen? I'm assuming you're talking about the band. Never really got into them. I've given them multiple chances. I will continue to give them chances, but never really got into them. Now, if you're talking about something completely different, then I talked about Citizen the band. Sorry.
The Citizens app.
The Citizen app.
Yeah, I love people snitching.
Yeah. Oh my God. Barry Schaefer next up. Go Phantoms. We had all 3 shorthanded goals so far this series from a Lappy coach PK on our bingo cards, right? Yeah, Zayd Wisdom, 2 shorthanded goals in a game, right?
Yep.
Love that from Zayd. Would really like to see Zayd find his way in this organization and maybe carve out a role as a fan favorite 4th liner. But yeah, Phantoms play tonight. Check out on our YouTube channel, Maddie Campbell did an interview with Bill, came out yesterday, so check that out. It's all about the Phantoms, and I imagine Maddie will be covering the game tonight, so watch out for her coverage on BSH, and obviously for PHLY diehards here. Mellerman 4, happy birthday, Charlie. How does it feel to be 25 years old? You know what, Mellerman? It feels great. It feels so good to be 25 years old. That is definitely my age.
Yeah, I'm 25 too.
Yeah, we're all 25, actually. That's how it works. We all are. Brenna might actually be 25 years old. She's definitely younger. Purple Crayon, Harold, thank you. As a gift to Charlie, I will refrain from the McQueen glaze. Oh yeah, this is our #1 Roger McQueen fan. Happy birthday, Charlie. Thank you, Harold Purple Crayon. Lyndon 49. Happy birthday, Charlie. Now you can drink legally. Yeah, I'm gonna be.
You're going back?
I finally can go to the bar and have an ID that isn't a fake.
Aw,
yeah.
What a day! Momentous occasion.
Momentous occasion for me, indeed. Max Anderson with 2 S's. Any B guys for the Brink Bump Bonk line? Ooh, that's a good question. Let me take a look at what I have. Well, we have Carter Bear.
Oh,
Carter Bear.
That would be
Bear
a good flyer
Brink Bump
right
Bonk. So yes. Carter Bear is a B guy, and it's a short B name, so that works.
Bears, Bunks, Battlestar.
We have Nathan Bem.
Ooh, okay.
There's another possible option for the Bs. So we got some Bs. We got some
killer
options.
Bs.
We got some killer Bs options here coming in this draft. Now for DA Flyers, man, one of the attendees of the lottery party, which was earlier this week. It feels like so long ago. It's just a few days ago. DA Flyers, man, is whoever we draft projected to be superior, inferior, or equal to Michkov. I would say that pretty much anyone I would project to be second behind Michkov in the pecking order. Maybe if you get Misa. He's the only guy, and Schaefer, I guess, but I'm ruling him out essentially because I'm expecting him to go 1. If you were to get Misa, I still think I would put Michkov ahead of him just in terms of dynamic upside, but you could make a case. I don't think any of, Martone, Hagens, Frondel, Desnoyers, I don't think any of those guys have the raw ceiling than Michkov has. That's just my opinion. I could be wrong, but that's my opinion.
I'm with you on that one.
Peeling onions, call up Sawyer Bolton. Sawyer Bolton has a big fan base, doesn't he? People really like him. He has people who are big Sawyer Bolton guys. Is he even, let me see, what's his deal? So he has not yet appeared in a playoff game for the Phantoms yet. I would imagine he's probably skating with the team, but he has not appeared in a playoff game. He appeared in 18 games for the Phantoms this year, scored 1 goal. Appeared in 13 games for the Reading Royals as well. Also scored 1 goal.
It sounds like
but
a
he fights
fan
in
favorite
hits.
there.
He fights and hits.
Oh, okay.
So there's
Frank
that.
Bialos. Gotcha.
There we go. Joe Rockhead. What number do you think Cates is looking for? There was some talk about his contract. I think we'll talk about that more next week. Get into his contract situation. I believe Anthony DeMarco released a report saying that it's looking like they may go to arbitration, that the Flyers view him as something of a $3.5 million a year guy on a long-term deal. What I will say is that Evolving Hockey, whose work I trust a lot, they did release their contract projections today using their model, which I think is probably the best public model out there. They have him on like a 5-6 year deal, deserving something like 4.5 mil. I would guess that's probably what Cates is looking for. So I don't think he's looking for 6. I don't think he's looking for something crazy, but I suspect he's probably looking for somewhere in that mid-4s range, which given how much the cap is going to go up, I would probably do.
Yeah. I mean,
but the Flyers should absolutely drive a hard bargain.
Sure.
See if you can get him to take less than that. Why not?
Why not?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, those are the hard decisions you have to make when you have a bunch of young guys that are going to have to sign big contracts at some point.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Exactly. Well, Steve, you got anything else you wanna share?
Oh, I got plenty. Well, no, I'm good.
Okay. This was a great F Around Friday. We got to remember some dudes. Got to answer some super chats. I got to celebrate my birthday, hosting a show and doing ad reads.
I mean, there's no better way.
No better way. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. We will be back on Monday talking more Flyers draft prospects, more options at 6, talking Noah Cates. Bill will be back. So join us at 12 p.m. on Monday for our next show. Steve, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, Charlie. Always a pleasure.
All right. Have a good weekend, everybody.
We all silly like the mayor.